Hello boys and girls, and welcome to Critical English for grade 7 to 8. Good afternoon everyone.
Good afternoon.
How are we feeling today?
Okay.
How was the first week of school?
All right.
All right. Alia, we still didn't enjoy it that much. Alia is having her own thing happening. All right. Today we're looking at narrative writing. Who can tell me what narrative writing is? Have you ever heard that concept before?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So tell me, indicate by raising your hand. Tell me what you think.
Narrative writing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Shamar.
So it's a type of writing that
That. All right, Akila, let's build on that. Narrative writing. I keep calling you Akila. And I keep calling you Akila. And just excuse me. I keep calling you Akila when you are Alia. So Alia, continue with what Shamar has said. Shamar has said it's a type of writing that.
This is something that sort of describes.
Describe what?
Like probably a character or
A character. So character, I like that word, character. Character is something. And where do characters come?
from stories.
Stories. So narrative writing is the type of writing where we tell a story. All right. Now, in order for us to tell a story, there are certain things that we must do. Right? We would have done. Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you looked at narrative writing, you looked at the elements of narrative writing. Yes? No?
Yes.
No? When we look at things like characters, characterization, we looked at plot, setting, those things.
yes. Sir.
We've come across those, yes?
Yes.
Good. All right. So we've gone through, I'm certain that you've gone through stories before, yes? Where you see how characters are presented, how the setting is presented, how the plot is presented, how the conflict is presented and resolved or not resolved towards the end of the story. All right? But in order for us, for our purpose, we have to learn to write those very narrative. All right? And when we read, we realize that these narratives are done in such a way that they captivate us. Isn't that so?
Yes.
When you're reading a story, do you see the girl is nice? Do you see that in the story? Just that sentence, the girl is nice? No, the writer goes to a great length to describe characters that as readers we believe that they are real. All right? So today we're looking at characters. All right? We're looking at characters, and we're going to go to the slide. We're looking at narrative writing and creating characters, because one of the things that we must be able to do in our writing is we must be able to create characters who are what? Who are believable, who are true. We must bring our characters to life. All right? But we just can't do that just like that. Can you do that right now?
No, miss.
No? But by the end of this lesson, well, I'm hoping that by the end of the lesson, I'm teaching 2 skills today to show you how to bring your characters to life. And hopefully, by the end of the lesson, we are at a different point than where we would have started. Okay? All right, so let's look. So we have a little thing to go back. AC always gets to me in this room. Let's go. So here we go. So we're looking, of course, at Critical English for grade 8. And I have some questions here. Who or what are characters in a story? And they're what? They're blocking. The lights are blocking us. Not sure if we can rectify that.
Want me to read it?
Pardon?
Want me to read it? I can see from this.
You can see from there. All right, go ahead, Ali, and read for us.
Characters are the persons or things who do the things in a story.
Yeah, So there are persons, there are animals or things, because have you ever seen movies where you have machines? Give me a movie with machines.
Robots?
Yes.
Transformers?
Transformer, that's a popular one. Yes, with animals, movie with animals.
Lion King?
Lion King, all right? So our characters are not just confined to a human being or people. It moves beyond that, all right? So it is the person, animal, or thing who does the things in the story, all right? So we have some questions, and the questions are for consideration. How do we go about the task of writing characters that ring true? In the sense that how do we make our characters believable? All right? So that at the end of our story, our readers say, oh, wow, I like this character because of this. Or so that we don't have them saying, oh, what was the point of this person? Have you ever read something and then you ask yourself that question? Or you've watched a movie and you're like, she didn't really make no sense. Yeah? Good. So we want to avoid those sort of things in our writing. How do we create multi-dimensional doers of the deeds in our stories that appear to live large, well beyond the confines of the flat page or screens in front of us? Because we are writing to present to our readers, and we want our characters to do what? To be able to live on long after they would have read or watched. For those of us who are ambitious enough to become script writers for television, we want to ensure that our characters make a lasting impact on our audience. All right? Now, those are questions we want to achieve. So let's talk about the first approach. And the first approach says, start with archetypes. Now, what do you think that means? Akila, read for us, and then we can probably discuss and try to break it down to see what it means.
Archetypes are the types of characters that reappear time and time again across time and culture.
Across time and culture. So what do you think that means, Ms. Samuels?
Miss, archetypes are characters that with the directors or whoever put them in the movie show more than one time inside the movie.
Yes, they're appearing, and they're quite popular, right? They're quite popular. And why are they popular? They're quite popular because when we look at them, we're talking about the fact that they're templates or symbols of the kind of people that drives the action in our story. Like, for instance, give me a popular archetype that you think. And let's read this one, and then you can give me your answer. The next part. It says, you'll find these characters characterized with terms such as what? The hero, the villain, the innocent, the mentor, the everyday man. There are many others too, and they provide excellent starting point to drive the action of any type of story. Now, have you ever had a story where at the beginning of the story, you know who the hero is? Yes. So who is your favorite hero for your any series, any book, anything you would have read?
That's Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman. So why do you like Wonder Woman? We all know who Wonder Woman is, yes? Right? And Wonder Woman did not just come in that movie, Wonder Woman. She came in other movies. They're Marvel movies where she came in too, right?
Yes.
Good. Other Marvel movies, yes. So go ahead and tell us why you like Wonder Woman.
It's because she's brave.
Brave.
Kind.
Kind.
And loving.
And loving. Yes. What about her appearance?
Yes.
Do you think I would make a good Wonder Woman?
Yes, miss.
Yes, so her appearance is very integral in. Now, I have some pictures. I'm not sure if you can see, but can you identify any of the pictures there?
Yes.
Yes. What is familiar to you?
I saw Harry from Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, yeah. And we have,
I see the Matrix at the top.
yes, there is The Matrix, Star Wars. Do we know any of these things? Lord of the Rings. Are these familiar to us?
Yes.
Yes. And in each of these, we have things like protagonist, antagonist, the mentor, sidekick, the manipulator, the septic, emotional, logican, and love interest. So those are types of, those are archetypes. So those are brackets, that we can place our characters in. All right. So when we are writing our story, we first have to decide what archetype are we going to write. Are our characters going to be villain? Have you ever had a movie where you were upset with the villain at first, but then towards the end of the movie or the end of the story, you sort of develop a sense of appreciation for them? Yes, you sort of understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. What about the Joker? How do you feel about the Joker in Batman, with Batman versus the Joker?
Yes, miss, because
We understand where his pain and his rage and all of that is coming from, no? Yeah?
yes,
Because he lost he lost his family. And sometimes grief and pain can change a person into ways that we cannot begin to describe. All right? Good. So here is your task. Your task is to identify an archetype for your story. And what are you considering? Be sure to consider the main characters of your favorite stories. So you're looking to select an archetype, whether it's a villain, whether it's a protagonist, an antagonist, whether it's just someone, a minor character, all right? And then you want to consider one of your main characters in a favorite story that you would have read, all right? And why are we doing this? We're doing this so that we can build a character shell for our character that we are going to write. So what do they have in common? So your character, so you have your archetype here. How do we spell archetype? Make sure I spell it right. Right? And who am I going to write about? Am I going to write about a villain? All right? And then look at a villain from your favorite movie. Right? A villain from your favorite movie. Now, what do they have in common? Right? What do they have? What are the differences? Next question says, how would you define their role in the story in 1 or 2 words? So this would be like whether they're a villain or whether they're the hero, all right? You have to decide what they're going to be in your story. Then, can you think of any example of these type of characters in other stories where they perform similar function, especially across different genres? All right, so those are some questions for us to consider. All right, but in the interest of time, we're going to sort of try to do this on our own because this is a writing exercise, and then I'm going to check in with you to see how you are doing. Do we understand how we go about selecting, building characters using archetype?
yes, miss.
Yes? So tell me, Akila, tell me what you understood.
I understood
Understand, because you're presently, yes.
that we can place a character into an archetype by the way they act and so on.
So they can either be a hero or a villain, or they can, and we have to decide that first, don't you think so? In terms of presenting our characters? Yeah, we have to decide who is going to be the hero and who is going to be the villain. so that we can have two characters that we can now move to describe or to create, to give them some sort of depth, so that they now become what? Believable. They now become real. All right? And that's the next thing we're going to do. Now, this word may have you going, but let's take it in the context of the language and not in the context of anything else. All right? The devil is in the detail. All right? The devil is in the detail. To create authentic, believable characters to people's fictional world requires great attention to details. So while they're archetype, right? While they're archetype and each character falling under a specific archetype, the hero in each movie that we see, they have distinct features. Isn't that so? Is Wonder Woman the same as Batman? No, they have distinct characteristics that are akin to them that makes Wonder Woman Wonder Woman, right? Her strength lies in what? The lasso, right? And she came from where?
The Amazon.
The Amazonia tribe. Whereas, and she has a different mission and a different goal. Isn't that so? As against Batman. Although they're both what? They're both heroes. Yes? Each character has her own detail. Those details that the writer add to them that makes them unique. All right? So let's look at what we're to do. So we have something here. It says physical appearance and mannerism. So those are the two things that we're going to look at when we talk about details. All right? For the purpose of today's lesson. Now, when we talk about physical appearance, what do you think we're talking about?
Something.
How they look.
How they look. Now, why is it important that we presenters say how they look, especially when we're writing?
So,
Yes. Hold on, Ali. Yes.
Miss,
Yes, Miss Samuels.
Miss, if you didn't write how they look or say how they look inside the story, the person will know who you're talking about or how they look.
And because we are writing, human beings are generally visual beings. We want to see things. All right? And that is why you have a lot of people playing video games. A lot of people would go and when a big movie come out, they want to go and watch it on a big screen. Because why? We are visual beings. We want to see things. And reading stories, what do? They paint pictures in our minds. And because they do that, if we don't create detailed characters for our readers, they will become what? Bored. Yes? They will become bored. So the devil is in the detail. Should have used another word, but we'll leave that word for today. So physical appearance, what we want the readers to see. Let's look at this sentence. He stretched to reach the coffee on the shelf. What does that tell us about the character?
He's trying to get the coffee from the shelf.
Yes, but what does that tell us about his physical appearance?
he's short.
He's short. So it's as if if you say Mrs. stretching to touch the light, why do I have to stretch? Because I am short. And so words, the sentence didn't say he's short, but the words that are used help the reader to understand that he is short. All right? So then I have some words that I would like to share with you. Hold on. In terms of what we can use to, I'm not sure why the light is blocking the screen. Miss Samuels, do you want to come over here so you can see? probably just sit here for the purpose of this class.
If you want to come down a bit.
Yeah, you can scoot over a bit so we make her comfortable so she can see. Let's look at the words on the board. So instead of saying fleshy or overweight, what are some of the things, what word can we use? What word can we use?
Plump.
Plump. So plump. So who is plump? Neither of us is plump. Let's look for a word that can describe one of us in here. We have corpulent, and corpulent is what? Excessively fat. We have obese, which is medically very overweight. Muscular, Shamar, we're talking about you here. Strong with well-developed muscles. Are we talking about you, Shamar? He smiled. Hefty, big and strong. Husky, strong and powerfully built. Burly, large in body or bulky. Sturdy, possessing excellent health and strength. Robust, strong, healthy, with stamina. Lanky, very thin and tall. I mean, lanky could probably work. Could work for you, Miss Samuels? No. Spindly, long, thin, suggesting weakness. Feeble, weak, lacking muscular power. Delicate, especially injured or easily made ill. Frail, delicate, usually in poor health. Gaunt, thin, extremely weak. Bony, very thin. I think this was me growing up as a child. As though the bones showing through the skin. Decrepit, weak and in bad condition from old age. Senile, connected with old age, showing weakness of the body and especially of the mind. So these are some of the, and if you notice, they're positives as well as negatives, yes? On both sides. So we can use these words to help do what? To help describe our characters in terms of their physical appearance. Now, after we would have identified what? The archetype of what character we would like to have, we can now proceed to do what? To describe their physical appearance. And then we can move on to mannerism, detail, very, very detailed. All right? Now, let's talk about what mannerism is. Mannerism says the information is not just on how a character looks and acts, but they can also provide insight into the working of their internal world, whether revealing a personality trait or a fleeting emotional state. So mannerism moves from physical appearance to tell us more detail, because in order for us to write good characters, we have to do what? We have to spend time creating these characters, isn't that so? And it says the devil is in the detail. So we've got to spend some time. Let's look at this example. For example, a character who is described as constantly standing with head hung low, avoiding eye contact, while walking with a shuffling gait, may be one who lacks what? Confidence. Do you agree with that? Yes, if somebody walking, man. Would you say that that person is confident? What about if I come to class and say, not talking to them today? What would you think?
Too much confidence.
Too much confident? Anything else? So I have some sentence I want to put on the board with regarding to mannerism, and we can talk about mannerism for a bit. Got some time. Let me take off take off this. So for homework, we're going to be looking at writing, developing characters using two things. What are those two things? Archetypes and
Is it physical appearance?
pattern
Archetype.
and details.
Yeah.
Details. And details account for what?
Physical appearance.
And
Mannerism.
all right, so let's look at these three sentences quickly. Greta walked across the room to she strode across the room looking down her nose. I don't think anybody wants to be Greta's friend right now. Do you think so? At the assembly on either side of her. And then the final sentence. She shuffled across the room, eyes downcast, fidgeting with a fraying hem. All right, so let's look at these sentences. Let's talk about sentence one quickly. So sentence one, is sentence one giving us any sort of details?
Yes. So telling you that
Greta walked across the room. Is that giving us any sort of detail?
No.
Is it telling us anything, or is it just telling us that Greta walked across the room? Just saying Greta walked across the room. And so this is a sentence that we try to avoid in our writing. All right? What about the second sentence? Have we learned any sort of mannerism from this? Have we learned anything about Greta from this sentence? No, we haven't learned anything about Greta from this sentence. What about the second sentence? She strode across the room, looking down her nose at the assembly on either side of her. Excuse me. Does this tell us anything about mannerism? And mannerism looks at personality trait. What does this tell us about Greta? Just picture Greta walking across the room, looking down her nose. Look at them down there. Commoners. When I put it like that, what?
Makes you feel look confident.
Confident?
Yes, please.
No,
Looking down your nose at people, like.
She feels so high.
She feels what? Haughty. She feels as though she is above those with whom she is associating with. Yes? So when we look at this sentence, we're talking about superiority. She feels very superior to those in the assembly. All right? And we learn about her personality trait. Right? So as a reader, when we encounter those sort of characters, what do? We sort of give the same response, don't we? Turn up, she just upset my soul. Yes? Good. What about the third sentence? She shuffled across the room, eyes downcast, fidgeting with a fraying hem. What does this tell us about her personality or her mannerism? Is it the same as the second one? No? What is it? So if things are not the same, what do you think?
I think for this one, she's kind of shy, I think.
Yeah, so this one here is the opposite of this one here. So this one here, she feels superior to everybody. And in the third sentence, she is what? Shy. She is fidgeting with the fraying hem, right? And eyes. One of the things about people who are shy or people who are reserved, right? Usually we call them introverts. Is that they try to avoid eye contact. They don't want to look people in the eye. It takes a lot to look at someone in their eyes, you know. You know that? Yes. Right? It takes a lot. That's you. He's looked them in the eye. You don't look at people in the eye? I could have been fooled. So these two sentences tells us about what? Mannerism. All right? And another thing, when we look at mannerism, we're talking about what? Personality traits. So it moves away from being just the physical. So instead of just their physical appearance, we're learning about their personality traits. And if we learn about what type of character there is, their physical appearance, and then their personality trait, aren't we getting to a place where we are building strong characters so that they can be believable? Yes. Do you think so? Yes. All right, so for homework, that is what you are going to do. So I'm going to send the presentation to you, so no worries, the information will be posted for you. So let's recap what we would have looked at today. So I have a task for you, and this task is the one that you're going to do for homework, continuing from the other task. Choose one of the archetypes identifying the previous activity. Write a few paragraphs on that character, describing and revealing their what? Their appearance and mannerism as discussed above. Also, base their character, personality, and their mannerism on real people you know. So you can look around and say, okay, all right, I'll write my character on this person, right? And you can pull character traits from real people that you know so that you can do what? So that you can make your characters believable, all right? With that, we've come to the end, and I have two questions for you. So what have you learned? And what was the most memorable part for you? So who wants to go first? We've got a minute to wrap up.
About describing your favorite character.
Character.
Like explaining like about them and their part in the story.
Yes, so that's the most memorable thing for you. So now you believe that you can go and create memorable characters. Yes? Same thing go for you, Miss Samuels. What about you, Ali? Do you have something different you want to share with us?
Yeah, I learned that it's really important to talk about their personality traits and understand the character more.
Yes, yes. So it really adds value to the characters when we pay attention to the details, all right? So today we looked at characters, and we said that characters are what? Are people, animals, or things that do things in the story. All right, so they're the doers of the action. They move the plot line along, and they happen to be happenings, be somewhere in which is set in, which is what we're going to talk about in the next class. All right, and we said that it is important for us to describe our characters, because in doing so, what are we able to do? And the two things that we looked at today are archetypes, and these have to do with what?
Archetype has
to do with what? The character types,
yes.
Right? Whether they are what? Give me some examples.
The
Hero, the villain, protagonist or the antagonist, the sidekick, all right? So the role that the character is playing, all right? So when we've identified the role that we want our characters to play, we then go into the what? Describe their personality and their physical appearance, because it's important that we place emphasis on those details. With that, we've come to the end of today's lesson. Thank you so much for joining us. Please stay tuned for mathematics, which is coming up next, and I will see you next week.
Hi colleagues, good afternoon. Could you indicate if you're desirous of having rat poison or rat trap set in your area? Mr. Kurt asked me to confirm. And everybody hearing me? What they index would be good, or you'd rather it
Last class, could you please remind us what we did? Substitutes, substitution in algebra. And the class before that, could you remember what we did?
Adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying of algebraic terms.
Okay. And could you remember we were looking at solving equations too for finding for x?
Yes.
Okay then. Well, this afternoon we're gonna use all of those concepts, and we're gonna go on to something a little more, but same within the same framework, right? So first of all, let's look at this video and pay much attention to it and the details of what you are seeing.
Professor Dave here. Let's talk about inequalities.
The video's up. No? The video is not ready as yet. All right, in the meanwhile, we will just move on a little and recap actually from our substitution and our equation. So let's look at the substitution first. First of all, with the substitution, what actually we would be doing there? If you were to just give me in your own words an explanation.
Finding the number of missing part.
Okay, if I'm using the unknown value to find the value of the entire expression, right? So for instance, we have, and we're going to use a little higher level one for today, because we would have been aware of the others. 2x squared plus 5y actually we will use minus 4. So given the value, if x equal to 2 and y equal to 1, so let's solve the expression. What do we do?
The 2
2
Time.
2 times,
2
or we can open the bracket, why 2?
because x equals 2.
Because x equal 2. So we need 2 in the bracket. Yes.
Close the bracket and put it 2 outside.
So we have the square plus 5 times.
1.
Why 1?
Because y equals
Y is equal to 1. And that will now give, what we will be adding?
minus 4.
Minus 4. So now we have 2 times 2 squared plus 5 times 1 minus 4. What do we do next?
We add.
We add?
No.
Multiply.
We multiply first. So in bracket, 2 times 2 would be 4. Why did I say 2 times 2?
Because
Of the given two and
the power.
The power is 2. So you're multiplying the number by itself twice, right? Plus
5 times 1, which is
5
5 ones 5.
minus 4.
Good. So what do we have to do with this part?
Multiply.
2 4 is 8.
2 4s 8.
Plus 5. Minus 4.
Next,
8.
13.
8 plus 5.
13.
13. 13 minus 4.
9.
Agreed, everyone? Great. So we would have substituted the value of x and the value of y into an expression to solve it, right? Take this down quickly in 30 seconds. And whilst you're doing that, think about our equation. When we finish, we'll say I.
I.
I. That's one. Two I's.
That's
I. Three I's. So we finish here. Okay, let's go to our equation. Give me an example of an equation that we can work.
Similar to that one.
You tell me. Could be simpler. 5.
5A.
5A.
Plus 3
3.
to x to the second power.
Oh, don't let's go so high. Equal. Let's go. Equal. 8. 8.
Yes.
Good. So in this case, what are we trying to do?
Find the value.
Find the value of the unknown or the variable. So we want to find the value of A. So we have a family with 3 children. So what do?
You move.
We will send away the children. And what operation the children is doing here with the family? So when we send them away, what would they do?
Subtract.
They will subtract, right? So we're sending them over to the neighbor. Maybe the grandmother's living over there. So we have 5A remaining, the parents, and we have the grandmother now with the children. So they're subtracting from her pot. So if we're to work it, 5A will be equal to 5. Good. But now, between the parents, maybe the mother and the father, things would have gone wrong. So a little separation would happen again now. So who would remain over here? The 5 would remain there? What are we solving for?
A.
The A. So the A will remain. And we will send away the 5. What is the 5 doing? What operation the 5 is doing with the A?
Subtract.
Is it?
Adding. No multiplication.
It's multiplying. Remember, when no signs are in between, it will be multiplying, right?
Yes, please.
So now we would have 5 living over here already. And if it was multiplying here, what operation will be doing on the other side? Division, dividing. So 5 into 5? 5 into 5? So the value of A is? 1. So if we substitute the 1 that we did just now, substitution, into this expression on this side, so it can be 5 multiplied by 5 ones plus
3.
equal
8.
So what did we say about the equation? It must be? It must be balanced. The left side must be balanced with the right side. Take this down quickly. You have 30 seconds again. So when you're solving any problem or solving for the unknown, you just remember certain things. Remember that you're looking to find the value of the unknown. So you have to, that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3, that is good. Yes, you have to ensure that you remove everything from the unknown that you are trying to find. And you remove the ones that are furthest from what you want to find, right? So I didn't remove the 5 first because the 5 is directly connected to the unknown. So I remove the number that is further from it. It's just associating with it, and I send that away. But it so happened that I do not want any number with it. So I need to remove it, detach it. And the only way we can detach it is by dividing it out because it is multiplying, right? So these were the stuff that we were recapping from our last 2 classes. Let's see if we can get our video up now. All right.
Professor Dave here. Let's talk about inequality.
Any song?
Algebra is all about equations. One side equals the other side, and we move things around to solve the formula. So there is another construct in algebra that we'll use, and it is related to equations. It's called inequality. Instead of an equation that equates two terms, telling us that they are equal, an inequality tells us how two terms are not equal, but rather that one is either greater than the other or less than the other. We can manipulate and solve inequalities exactly the same way that we manipulate equations, with one or two tiny additional rules. So let's take a look at these now. First, let's examine something simple, like x is greater than 3. Unlike a simple equation, where x has precisely one value, x has many values, and any value for x that satisfies the inequality is a solution for x. 4 could work, or 10, or a billion, or 3.00001. Any number imaginable that is bigger than 3 is a solution to this inequality, and this can be represented on a number line using an open circle, implying that 3 is not part of the solution. Anything less than or equal to 3, like 0 or -3 or 2.999 or 3 itself, will not be a solution. We will see inequalities set up like some of the equations we've seen as well. How about x plus 2 is less than 7? As you might expect, all we do is subtract 2 from both sides, which gives us x is less than 5. So any value less than 5 is a solution, while 5 or above is not. We will also see these symbols, which mean greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. These work the same way as the other symbols, except that they include the specific value shown rather than excluding it. If we have 3x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 16, we subtract 4 from both sides, then divide by 3, and we get x is greater than or equal to 4. Now on the number line, we represent this with a closed circle, meaning that it is filled in rather than empty to represent that the number 4 is included in this solution. So everything here works the same way it does with equations, but there is one difference we need to point out. If we are multiplying or dividing by a negative number, we need to reverse the direction of the inequality symbol. For example, if negative x is greater than 6, we would either multiply or divide both sides by -1 to get x. But if we do that, we have to switch the greater than to a less than. X is less than -6.
All right. So just let's look at that part of it. Now, with what you would have seen just now, as I said, take note of certain details. Tell me something in your own words about inequality or inequations. Other than what we did just now, the last one was equation. The video would have said, spoke about inequality, or you can say inequations. So what could you say about it? What's the difference? Any difference? Anything you would have observed or you think you can remember?
Inequalities use more than or less than sign.
All right, it used more than and less than sign, but I actually wanted you to give me a little simpler explanation in your own words, other than saying more than and equal sign. What were you going to say? Same thing. All right. Yes, fair enough with using more than equal sign. But all I needed you to say, the equation, what we said about the equation must be balance. Okay? But the inequality is actually, the answer can either be more than or equal to the expression, right? Or less than or equal to. Good? So it won't be only equal to and being balanced, right? It could be more, much more, or it could be much less, or it can be equal, right? So we have the symbols here. We have this symbol, this symbol. Normally, they would call this symbol what? More than. And they would call this symbol?
Less than.
Why would they call this more than?
Because more than goes to the
Bigger number.
yeah.
The more than goes to the bigger number. But where is the bigger number here? No number. So what I would normally say, instead of trying to remember this symbol as more than and this symbol as equal to, you just try to remember where the open, I would say the open mouth or the alligator mouth is, where it's facing is more than, and where the tail of the alligator is pointing is less than, right? Because in reading it also, persons are confused when they have to actually take a problem and write the answer down. They would just probably try to remember the two symbols, how it look, and just write one. Not remembering which one would indicate that it's more than or which one would indicate it's less than. And what does this red part mean? This part, what does it mean? What does it look like actually in isolation? It's more than or equal to. So this represents the equal part. Right? So look at this. If I say x here, 5. So 5 is more than x. Agree?
Yes.
And I can say x is less than 5. Agree?
Yes.
Now in this case, what do I say?
5. X is more than 5.
X is more than 5 or 5 is less than x. But let's go on this one side. Let's use here. Say 8. What do I say?
X is equal to 8.
X is
Equal.
X is
Less than
or equal to.
8.
Or if I have this, what do I say?
X
X
is
is
More than or equal to 10. Right? But remember, these is two separate problems. I just use them together in an example. Right? So, considering the number line to represent certain things in your inequality, we have 0. In this case, we're looking at somewhere with 5, right? So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's positive 5. What do we say? X is more than or less than? X is less than. So if x is less than 5, where we have 5 here, where do we go? Left or right?
left.
That way?
Yes.
Sure?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Because X is less than 5.
It's less than 5.
Yes.
So could I go till here?
Yes.
Yes,
Miss.
miss.
Why?
Because all of those there are
All of those numbers behind there less than 5. But from what you would have grasped from the video, what does it say about this circle?
The circle represented the number itself.
Yes, and the circle represents the number. And when it is not shaded, it represents less than. When it is shaded, it means that it's equal to. So in this case, do we need to shade it? No, because it's just less than. And as you said, it can continue going. Let's look at the other one. You'll get a chance to get one to copy. So I'll take this off here. Let me take the whole thing to shift the number line a little. For a space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0. So 5, 6, 7. We're here again. Read. X
is
more than 5. So where do I go? Left or right?
Right.
Sure?
Yes.
So I'm coming this way? Where do I stop?
You don't have to stop.
I don't have to stop. I can continue going. Do I shade or not?
No, you don't shade.
Why?
Because it was
It's not equal to, so I don't shade, right? So if we take, for example, we're using x is less than or equal to 8, that means I will have to have an 8 here. Seven, 8. And we're starting at 8. Do I go left or right? Less than or equal to? Left or right? If it's less than. Huh?
Go left.
Left? What left tells me?
that it's less.
It's less. So I can go left. However, it is less than or equal to. So what do I need to do?
Shade it.
Shaded.
I need to shade the circle. Because it's equal to, so I must shade it to represent that. So you can see the difference of when you're using your less than or equal sign, your less than or more than sign, or your equal to, less than or equal to or more than or equal to signs or symbols. Think we understand?
Yes, miss.
Sure?
Yes, miss.
So could we do an example? All right. I'll give you an example for you to work. And you will give me, we're actually combine an inequality with solving an inequality with the number line, right? And remember, the inequality is solving just the same way how we solve the actual equation, right? So we have x plus 2, simple one, less than 4. If we're solving, what do we have to find for?
X.
We have to find for the x. And if we find it for the x, what do we need to do? With the 2.
Subtracted.
We send it over and subtract it. So we have x remaining. We have our symbol. 4 is already living there. And now we have to subtract 2. So x would be, what is this symbol? X would be less than,
4 minus
and 4 minus 2 is?
2.
2.
So x is less than 2. So we'll take that and put it on a number line. 0, 1, 2, 3. Where should I put the start?
At 2.
At 2. Where do I go? Do I go left or right?
Left.
Sure?
Yes, miss.
Is it less than or more than?
Left.
Less than. So we go left. Shade or don't shade?
Don't shade.
Don't shade. So we would have solved an inequality using the same steps we use for the equation, finding the value of x. And we also use it to solve on a number line, to represent on a number line. Copy that quickly. Okay then. My screen. Right. So let's look at this. What inequality does this graph represent? The first one. Could anybody say the inequality for me? I'm listening.
Whatever letter
X.
is in
Yes, we
X,
will use X in place of all.
X is more than 4.
Anybody else agree or disagree?
Agree.
Why?
Because it's not shaded.
It's not shaded.
Equal.
And
It goes beyond 4.
and the arrow goes beyond 4 to the right. Okay, let's look at the other one. What would be the inequality for that one?
X is
X is
less than -1.
less than -1. Everybody agrees?
Yes, miss.
So why is it more?
You mean less? Why is it?
Why isn't it more? Why is it less?
That's because it's shaded.
It's not shaded.
Because the R is going in the left direction.
And as the number grows larger negatively, it becomes smaller. Right? All right. So let's look at the fourth one. Let me see if you can identify with that. Yeah?
X is equal to or less
Less.
than 1. I mean
X.
done.
Okay, you can say 1. But if you realize it's halfway between 0 and 1, and that will be
0.
0.5.
0 and a half, 0.5 or a half. Right? So it's actually X is less than or equal to a half. Right? Okay, well let's go to the one that we had to solve. So we're actually wrapping up everything in one. Our equation, our inequalities, and where we substitute. So let's look at which value of X would make this inequality true. 20 minus X, I'm not gonna say the other part. Copy it first. Because I want you to tell me what symbol.
That's the sum is.
Yes. 20 minus X, the symbol 6. So solve it for me. And then when you're reading it, you have to tell me the symbol and your number line. Remember, you have to solve it first before you do the number line. Any eyes as yet? Any eyes? Okay, let's look on the board. And as we wrap up, please call the equation for me. The X, yes, the equation.
Which value for X would make this inequality true?
Okay, call the inequality.
20 minus X is less than 6.
So do I draw it this way?
No.
Less than 6. So I need to find the value of X. And if you are paying a little more attention to the video, that you will get the video to recap it, you will see something now. So we want to find for X. So that means we have to send away 20. Agree? So we send the 20 away. The 20 is positive here. So if you notice, you will have a negative X remaining. 6. Sorry about that. And what do I write here?
Is
Plus 20 or minus 20? 20, it's positive.
minus.
So we'll have to put minus 20 because it's positive. The negative belongs to the X. So negative X less 6 minus 20. Remember, we have how many?
$6.
And we owe.
$20.
So if we pay the $6, how much we still owe?
$14.
$14. So we still owe $14. And if you recognize both sides, you would have a negative. However, because the x is a negative, you still have to change your signs. Right? So we will have a negative x and a negative 14. And when we would have learned, when we were doing the directive numbers, a negative and a negative is
A positive.
a positive. So we actually multiply in the left side by -1 and the right side by -1. So it will cancel out our negative. But according to the video which you will be recapping, as long your unknown was a negative, you will have to switch your symbol. So I know this is a lot to chew on, right? So copy this. You will get some practice work on it where you can go over, look over, and get a better understanding. Since it's a little more complex than the simpler one that you would have done for practice. So as you are writing, we would have covered the equations, the substitutions, and the inequalities. And what's the difference between the equation and the inequation or inequality? What's the difference? Yes, it will be represented with the more than and less than symbol, or more than and equal to, or less than and equal to, right? So your homework will be given to you. Good afternoon.